President Trump is acting like an international gangster, threatening to trample over the sovereignty of an ally, threatening the end of NATO altogether, and now threatening to hit our country and 7 European allies with outrageous, damaging tariffs unless he gets his hands on Greenland. The President of the United States is attacking our economy, our livelihoods, and our national security. The only people cheering him on are Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping. We have to finally be clear-eyed about the sort of man Trump is and treat him accordingly. He is a bully. He thinks he can grab whatever he wants using force if necessary. And he is corrupt. The most corrupt president the United States has ever seen. So there are only 2 ways of getting him to back down: bribing him with a new jet perhaps, or a few billion in his crypto account, or standing up to him like we would with any other bully.
Britain is a bully. A lot of the Europeans complaining are bullies. Yes. They've all been complicit in the genocide in Gaza. They stand mute when the U.S. and Israel bomb Iran. They play all sorts of games. What has energized the Europeans is that it turned on them, not the bullying and the creepiness, but the fact that it is now turned on Europe. Now, of course, I agree in substance. It is grotesque what Trump has been saying, what he's doing, what he's threatening. I think it's brazenly unconstitutional, brazenly illegal. But I do want to point out that had the Europeans had some principles all along, maybe they would have criticized not just this president, but the long list of war crimes of all of our recent presidents. But instead, they participated in them. What is suddenly energized the Europeans is that it's now directed towards them. I could give you, by the way, another example of this. When Israel and the United States bombed Iran, a blatantly vulgar action, completely contrary to international law, completely contrary to U.S. law, just a reckless escapade. There was a UN Security Council meeting, and I attended it, and the ambassador of Denmark told the Iranians who had just been bombed, "You must show restraint." And the Danish ambassador did not mention the fact that she was directing her animus towards a country that had just been bombed, because she didn't mention that Israel had done the bombing and the United States had done the bombing. I thought it was pretty strange. So I went up to the ambassador afterwards and I said to her that maybe you should have mentioned that Iran was bombed. And she peremptorily turned around and walked away. She didn't want to hear it from me. But my point is, now the U.S. is threatening Denmark. Of course, I find it repelling. I want to be perfectly clear about this. But the Europeans go along, or went along, with a lot of repellent behavior by the United States when it was repellent towards someone else. The New York Times yesterday said that the U.S. looks like it's behaving like an empire. And I just had to chuckle and grimace in a way. It's been behaving like an empire for decades, but against the Palestinians or against the Iranians or against the Sudanese or against the Libyans. That doesn't count until it's against the Europeans. So we should also wake up. The British should wake up. Everybody should behave themselves. This is a dangerous world, and it has been dangerous and getting more and more dangerous even before Trump's rant on Greenland.
The MP's strong language reflects genuine alarm in parts of the UK political spectrum over transatlantic relations fracturing. Trump's threats, tariffs on Denmark plus 7 allies like UK, escalating to 25% by mid-2026 unless Greenland is negotiated, were framed by him as leverage for national security in the Arctic, citing potential Russian/Chinese influence. Despite no active threats and existing U.S. military presence, Thule Air Base, European leaders, including UK PM Keir Starmer, publicly rejected any sale or force, emphasizing sovereignty and principles. However, the reaction highlights selective outrage. Many European governments, UK included, have supported or abstained from condemning US-led actions in other regions, e.g., airstrikes on Iran in 2025, Gaza conflict involvement. This pattern suggests alliances often prioritize self-interest, solidarity when threats are external, but indignation when directed inward. Trump's approach echoes America First unilateralism, risking NATO cohesion, but his quick de-escalation, dropping tariffs after NATO talks on January 21, 2026, and agreeing to a vague framework for Arctic cooperation without force, shows rhetoric may serve as negotiation theater rather than fixed policy. Critics see gangsterism. Supporters view it as tough bargaining to address perceived imbalances, e.g., U.S. bearing NATO costs. No evidence supports imminent force, and market/economic fallout, stock drops, appear to have influenced the pullback. Key takeaways. Strong rhetoric from allies can highlight real alliance strains, but often reveals double standards in international relations. Threats like tariffs can pressure negotiations but risk backlash and economic self-harm, e.g., trade disruptions. De-escalation, as seen January 21st, shows personal/leader dynamics and economic guardrails can override bravado. True alliance strength requires consistent principles, not selective criticism.
Now the Europeans are worried because it's directed towards them. They should have been worried a long time ago. I'm hoping that people could learn to think a little bit beyond their most immediate self-interest and actually reflect on the broader development in the world, which is the United States has been lawless for, well, I would say since the CIA was formed in 1947, which initiated a spate of dozens and dozens of illegal wars, coups, assassinations, and regime change operations that have continued until today. And it shouldn't have taken the threat against Denmark to bring that out to the Europeans, but maybe they will also come to reflect on that fact.
The critique of long-standing U.S. interventions is well documented historically, e.g., CIA roles in Iran 1953, Guatemala 1954, Chile 1973, more recent regime change efforts in Syria/Libya. Post-1947 actions often justified as Cold War/containment or post-9/11 counterterrorism, but many violated international law, UN Charter Article 2, 4, on non-use of force. The 2025 Iran bombing fits this pattern. Unilateral strikes without UN authorization, escalating tensions. Denmark's UN statement, urging Iranian restraint post-bombing, aligns with broader Western/EU positions emphasizing de-escalation from the targeted party, often framed as even-handed but criticized as biased, ignoring aggressor accountability. This mirrors a realist view of alliances. Smaller powers, like Denmark, align with the hegemon, US, for security/economic benefits, tolerating actions elsewhere until self-interest is threatened. Trump's Greenland push revived 2019-era interest but escalated with tariffs, seen by critics as neo-colonial/imperial overreach, by proponents as strategic Arctic positioning amid melting ice/routes and resources. Recent reversal, no force, tariffs dropped after NATO framework, talks focusing on cooperation/minerals, suggests bluster achieved partial concessions without invasion. Europeans delayed pushback underscores dependency on U.S. security umbrella, NATO, complicating independent foreign policy. The tiger metaphor holds. Bandwagoning with a powerful but unpredictable ally risks blowback. Key takeaways. Historical patterns of intervention show power imbalances persist in global affairs. Legality often bends to might. Selective moral outrage undermines credibility. Consistent application of principles, sovereignty, non-aggression, across cases would build stronger norms. Smaller states face tough choices in alliances. Benefits, protection, come with risks, entanglement or targeting. Public confrontations, e.g., Sachs anecdote, expose diplomatic hypocrisies, but systemic change requires broader reforms like stronger multilateral enforcement. Recent de-escalation on Greenland highlights how economic/market pressures and diplomacy can temper escalatory rhetoric faster than moral appeals.